So today we are going to talk about what are good times. Today we are going to talk about why everybody is behind the good times. And if you want to keep up good times, you need to identify some agents, your kings and queens, to keep up the good times. And if today you want to invest time in yourself, you want to invest resources in yourself, you need to identify with whom you would invest your resources, with whom you should invest your time. Everyone wants to have good times. But is it the fact that everybody is having the good times? The answer is no. Majority of the people on the face of this earth are actually not having a good time and are facing difficulties. And then they have no idea how to turn this around. So before we start, let's identify some different perceptions and different ideas. What are good times? Definitely Piali has definitely mentioned what are some good times. Let's have some more perceptions. Good times can be a walk in the park with your loved ones, or having a good time, or I would say a me time in your comfort zone, having your favorite drink, or witnessing India becoming the first ever T20 champion. Or, yes, I would quote him, or living your life as per your personality and as per your dreams, and not caring about the different perceptions of people and how people have outlook of yours. So good times depends on different situations. Good times can be different according to different people. But as the law of nature demands, when there are good times, there are bad times also. For example, a bad grade on your notebook and the subsequent fear of a scold from your parents when you're young. Getting fired from your job into the abyss of financial insecurity. Or getting, obviously, separated from your loved ones. But let's take a minute and ponder on the fact that do bad times or good times stay as they are? The fact is no. Good times can be converted into bad times, and bad times can be transformed into good times. If we take care of certain key variables or certain key agents who are in this black box, if we as human beings in our bad times do identify our kings and queens who are these agents into the black box, we certainly can transform our good times. Or maybe, let's say, good times can be transformed into bad times, and bad times can definitely be transformed to good times. So now let's open this black box and witness the kings and queens of the good times.
So as we unravel the black box, we find our first agent of our we find the first king of happiness in our life, that is our family. Now we will see during different stages of our life, different people who act as king of our good times. First, mother. When a child is born, he or she cries, then mother feeds her, she comforts her, and then child is full of smiles. So who is the king of good times for child? Mother is the queen, or let's say king of good times. How many times have you killed this dragon to save the queen? Many times. So at this time, who was the king of your good times? Mario. Super Mario or Mario was the king of your good times. Next. Now, when you cross your teenage, then you graduate, and your father, he becomes your best friend. You even have beer with him. So he is your king of good time. Then you finally marry, and then your wife or your husband, they become king of your good times. Because like she say, Shah Rukh Khan is the king of Bollywood because he owns Bollywood. And in the king of good times, who owns those good times? That person are the king of good times. And then we have children, and the cycle continues. We can see this pig got maximum number of likes on the Facebook because you can see love, you can see happiness, you can see king of good times. Sir is the king of good time for the child, and child is the king of good time for sir. Now, how can we say that, how can leader be a king of good time for its team? It is possible. Or can we say a king of good time is a good leader? Let us see who leader is. A leader is someone who promises good times to the team. A leader is someone who makes you feel secure. A leader is someone who would never sacrifice people to numbers. For example, tomorrow there's a layoff in the company, and the manager says, we will not lay off anyone, and we will all suffer something. So everyone suffering a little is better than some people suffering a lot. So by these small things, you can always create good times in your organization. And as a team, you look after the person to your left and you look after the person to your right. Next. So result is that people would sacrifice their blood and sweat for you. And when you ask the people, why are you doing this? They will say that because the leader would have done it for me. And the result is that you have good times everywhere.
Have a look at this slide. Can you guess who I'm referring to? I'm referring to a teacher. A teacher is an agent of change who brings about happiness in our lives. Let's take a look at few cases where the teacher acts as the king of good times. Abdul Chaurasia, a primary school teacher in the Malappuram district of Kerala, swims across a river every day to ensure that the students receive education. He believes that his efforts are worth. Another teacher, Robin Chaurasia, and the co-founder of an NGO called Kranti. She teaches and encourages women from Mumbai's red light areas to become community leaders and peer teachers. She is the silver lining for these girls and truly the queen of good times. Talking about silver lining, how can we forget about our friends? How can we forget about our friends? Friend, as we grow old, friends become more important in our lives. Next, please. All of you would agree to me when I say we do outperform, we do outdo ourselves when we are among the best of our friends. Let's have a look at a video, please.
I suppose I could set it up for you. That would save you some money. You get the forms, I'll prepare them for you, nearly free of charge. I'd only ask 3 beers apiece for each of my co-workers.
Co-workers, get him. That's rich, ain't it?
I think a man working outdoors feels more like a man if you can have a bottle of suds. It's only my opinion. Sir.
What are you Jimmy staring at? Back to work! Let's go, work!
And that's how it came to pass, that on the second to last day of the job, the convict crew that tarred the plate factory roof in the spring of '49 wound up sitting in a row at 10 o'clock in the morning, drinking icy cold Bohemia-style beer, courtesy of the hardest screw that ever walked a turn at Shawshank State Prison.
The things we do for our friends, the things they do for us, the ordeals our friends go through to make us feel like winners. This is the intent of the video. As Morgan Freeman goes on to say in the movie, we felt like the lords of all creations. I believe that it's truly priceless to find great friends.
Having good friends is indeed priceless, but at the same time, we have to be careful about false friends as well. If we view the things in a slightly pessimistic view, then the things take the other way around. Good times can become bad times as well. To substantiate this, I would like to take an example from one of the Hindu mythologies, Mahabharata. Krishna and Arjuna are very well known for their friendship. But in spite of that, Krishna didn't hesitate to become one of the reasons for the death of Abhimanyu, son of Arjuna. Moving on. In this case, Dronacharya is the king of Arjuna's good times during his education. But here we can see Dronacharya, the same Dronacharya, he asked Ekalavya to give his right hand thumb as a token of gratitude. Whatever may be the reason, but here Dronacharya did reduce the prospects of Ekalavya's good times. And we also heard many instances in the recent times that many children and students are subjected to sexual harassments by their own teachers. And moving on, there are false teammates and false relatives. These can become a catalyst to change good times to bad times as well. Here we can observe Shalya, the charioteer of Karna during Kurukshetra war, and Shakuni, the close relative of Kauravas, can be taken as example in this case.
Life is full of surprises, and so are people. Our life is filled with people who either tear us down or bring us up. This case can be especially attributed to people who we look up to for guidance and inspiration. Yes, I'm talking about our leaders who we look up to. As Rajat pointed out, in a black box, if we get a good leader, then our times are good. But what if it's a bad leader? Let's take the case of Zimbabwe. See, in Zimbabwe in 1997, it was known as the breadbasket of Africa. It had the largest economy in Africa. It was the 6th largest gold producer, and its people had a life expectancy of 60 years. And 95% of the children in Zimbabwe went to school, which was higher than India compared to at that time. And now let's just fast forward to 2010. In 2010, as you can see, the inflation rate in Zimbabwe is at 3.5 million %. The unemployment rate is 94.4, and the life expectancy has dropped to 37 years. Why has this happened? In just a span of 13 years, why has this happened? And when we look at that, how Zimbabwe went from being the breadbasket of Africa to just a basket case of Africa, then comes the person, Robert Mugabe. Robert Mugabe is the 92-year-old president of Zimbabwe. He was a teacher. He was a freedom fighter who spent more than a decade in jail for the independence of Zimbabwe. But after coming to power, he became drunk with power. He didn't want to let go of his positions and responsibilities. So, in a bid to attack the black population, he implemented a policy by which the major black population could take the wealth and land of the white minority people without their consent. This was just to improve his support and popularity within the black community. But these had understated repercussions. Like the entire Zimbabwe economy was decimated. Even the Zimbabwe dollar decimated to such level that they had to abandon their own dollars because it has become worthless due to hyperinflation. So as you can see from this case itself, that leaders should be sensible to others. They should not be selfish to one's own needs. And it also shows a case of how one with a responsibility can damage a country in just 13 years. So, in future course of time, we are to become the leaders of tomorrow, and we must take our responsibility seriously and make careful decisions because it's in our hand that whether we make our future good and whether we become the king of good times or the king of bad times.
So far we have discussed about various kings and queens of our lives. We think that these kings and queens have the power to change our times from good times to bad times. They have all the power in the world to influence our all the good and bad times in our lives. Is it so? Not really. We are forgetting one most important king of our life. And this king, unfortunately, is most of the time it is forgotten by most of us. So let us find this king out. I'm going to take an example of a small girl. When she was just 4 years old, her parents separated and she had to live with her grandparents in a poverty-stricken area. She used to wear dresses made up of potato sacks. At the age of 9, she was raped by her cousin, uncle, and a family friend. At the age of 13, she ran away from her house only to become a mother at the age of 14. Today, we all know her. Yes, we all know her. She worked hard to become one of the most loved person throughout the world. According to Forbes, in 2009, her net worth was $2.7 billion. Oprah Winfrey, who was the king in her life? Who changed her life from bad to good? Consider a person who has just lost his job, who has nowhere to go, who has no money in the bank, who has lost. So consider a man who has just lost his job. He has no money in the bank, and he is stranded in a country far, far away from his home. He can't go to anyone. He can't go for help to anyone. So, can you think what might be happening inside his mind? This is not the only situation. This can happen due to diseases, sickness, divorce, and whatnot. Maybe you've just undergone a drastic change in your life. Maybe you feel like you're being pushed down and down by your peers. Maybe you're not able to perform because you feel like everybody's judging you. What do you do in that case? You're facing a wall of hopelessness. What do you do in this case? You cannot run away from your responsibilities. You cannot run away from your problems. What do? You pick yourself up. You take your life in your control. And you work hard to change it. During this, you find the motivation to change your life, and this motivation comes from within. The struggle comes from within. The inspiration comes from within. And this is the time of struggle which brings out the true king inside you. So let us welcome the king inside us. Ask yourself, we all have done this in one way or the other. We must know that we are the kings of our own lives. So I would request you to sit for 2 minutes one day and thank this king inside you for making things happen when there was no other way.
So, in summarizing the presentation, I would just like to say, on behalf of my team, life is about roller coaster. We all have ups and downs. The key is to be happy and enjoy and celebrate your life during your ups, and keep up your courage during your downs. And how do you do it? I think the most effective and essential way is to identify your true kings and queens and to be by them in most difficult and most important times of your life. Thank you.